السلام عليكم جميعا. أول شيء حبيت أرحب فيكم كلكم وأشكركم لحضوركم لهذه الجلسة الأخيرة لمنتدى اقتصاد المعرفي الرابع. هذه الجلسة راح تلقى باللغة الإنجليزية، فاللي يحتاج عندنا سماعات للترجمة الفورية هناك بالطاولة إذا حد يحتاج. Okay. Excellencies and esteemed guests, welcome to the final panel discussion of this forum. My name is Bashar Ma'arafi, and I'll be your moderator for today. This panel discussion will be on emerging technologies and the fourth industrial revolution. As you know, the fourth industrial revolution is already here, and we are already living in it. So it's only appropriate to talk about some of the different technologies that will eventually enable the transition to a knowledge economy. We're going to touch on the future of work and the knowledge economy, the impact of the fourth industrial revolution on specific industries and sectors. We're going to talk about digital skills for the fourth industrial revolution, cybersecurity, AI, engaging in blockchain, smart cities, and innovation and entrepreneurship in the knowledge economy. With us today is our esteemed group of experts from within the field. First, we have Ronald Abinajam, who is a cybersecurity and digital transformation consultant and expert. He is the founder and CEO of RevoTips. He was the IT and cybersecurity consultant at the Kuwait Ministry of Information and the personal consultant of the Minister of Information. Roland is an international consultant with the UNDP in cybersecurity and digital transformation. Roland was a university instructor for MBA students at the American University of Science and Technology and an instructor for the Lebanese American University. We also have Nasser Abdel Jalil, who is an industry lead at Microsoft Kuwait and the Middle East. He brings a wealth of experience in discussion on emerging technologies and the ever-evolving landscape of the fourth industrial revolution. With 9 years tenure at Microsoft, Nasser has played a pivotal role at managing the public sector interface between government and education industries in Kuwait, and more recently, across the broader Middle East. We also have Vijay Jaswal, who is IFS's Chief Technology Officer from the Asia Pacific, Japan, Middle East, and Africa region, and currently is based out of Dubai. He has worked in the field of digital transformation, integration, Internet of Things, and business process excellence for over 25 years. Okay. I'm going to start our session by asking our experts a group of questions. And in the end, if we have time, we can open the floor for questions from the audience. I don't think we will have time. Okay, for our first question. What is the impact of emerging technologies on the fourth industrial revolution, on the future of work, in the knowledge economy? And we'll start with Vijay.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Good evening everyone. I think it's definitely going to make our lives easier, right? I mean, we've already seen it with the generative AI. The previous session was fantastic. I love this new Teams functionality. So it's going to make our lives easier. That's the first thing. I think the only drawback with AI, though, is I've got two sons. They're twins. They're 17. And I worry, because in 5 or 6 years' time, they're just going to ask ChatGPT a question. They're not going to take the time and effort to research. So that's my only concern about it. It kind of makes our lives a bit too easy, right? Because that's where learning occurs, isn't it? When you do research, you read white papers, etc. That's where learning comes. And generative AI gives you that instant knowledge. And I don't know if that's going to stick inside our minds and our brains. But in terms of the advantages, it's definitely going to make our lives easier in many ways. Let's touch upon some of the technologies, right, that are covered in Industry 4.0. So AI, we've spoken about, right? IoT, the ability to put sensors on devices. And I'm going to give you some customer examples as well. So we've got a customer, so I'm based in Dubai, so we have a customer in the UAE, a utility company, right? And they've got fields and fields, probably about 10 football fields worth of solar panels. And the big challenge in this part of the world with solar technology is the dust and the sand. And the solar panels, they need to be cleaned. And it's a very simple IoT solution, right? So how they clean them, every week a robot literally rolls across the solar panel, about 3 kilometers across, wiping the dust. And these robots do this every day, okay? But this organization doesn't know when a robot breaks down until a week later when the energy produced comes down, right? I mean, you got to remember, this is in the middle of the desert. It's hot, right? They're not going to have people roaming around the middle of the desert looking at these robots. So we just put a very simple motion detector on the robots, right? So when a robot isn't functioning, a flag comes up and we know the exact precise location, and then we can send out an engineer to fix that solar panel. So we're also touching upon sustainability here as well, right? Because I think IoT helps with sustainability. It ensures not just devices, but the equipment that we use in our day-to-day lives, the equipment that oil and gas companies use, the equipment that utility companies use, is working, is either producing energy or is transporting oil and gas, etc. So I think it helps to give us extra eyes and ears through data. And at the end of the day, knowledge is king. And that's what, and the more knowledge we have, the more sensors we have, for instance, along an oil and gas pipeline as an example, or robots in a solar farm, the more knowledge we have, the better we are able to ensure that that equipment is working as it should. I don't want to steal the thunder for everybody else, so I'll hand back to you.
I did forget to mention, let's try to keep it to 2 to 3 minutes in the interest of time. So maybe, Ronald, you can also share some of your insights.
Well, first, it's great to be with you here, especially that it's Thursday night and we are late at night before the weekend, so I'll also try to be as brief as possible. So first, I agree that this revolution will make our life easier, but actually it can also make it harder. And I will base on, during the presentation of Microsoft, she mentioned something that's very important. We as experts and leaders in top companies in the world like Microsoft and other companies, we say that we can't keep track of all the new technology and latest update and so on. For me, on a personal level, I need to have at least 3 to 4 hours reading, maybe late at night or after midnight, just to keep track of what happened between, let's say, Microsoft and Sam Altman, and also a latest update about latest track in technology, AGI, generative AI, and so on. So how come for people that they are not tech expert, for people that they found technology, it's part of their daily life, but they are not aware on how to use it, they are not aware about all the security risks, all the security concerns, and so on. I do lots of trainings here with all governmental entities in Kuwait, Ministry of Defense, Education, Electricity, all ministries. And I figured out that there are lots of tools, lots of applications, lots of facilities in technology, but people, they are not using them because it's not like friendly for them. They are not familiar to it. Lots of people, they still prefer to have like their physical civil ID instead of using Kuwaiti ID, knowing that Kuwaiti ID would facilitate a lot their life, and so on and so on. So when we are talking about, let's say, about this revolution, for me, the 2 biggest concerns are related to changing the education system in order to change our mentality from treating education as we used to be from like 30, 40, 50 years ago. So this is number 1. And number 2, it's the most important part, education will not stop after you finish the university. We need to be educated on daily basis. Every day, for example, if I don't follow all the news and update today, tomorrow I'll be outdated. Literally, just one day. So just imagine if we have graduated people just having their university degree, whether PhD, MBA, whatever you want. The second day, you will be outdated. So it's all about education, awareness, and continuing education.
Absolutely true. What about Nasser? Maybe you can...
Test, okay. First of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and try to contribute with my colleagues here. I think for us to understand the future of work, we need to understand the history as well, or read from our history. During the Second Industrial Revolution, First Industrial Revolution, factory workers were before factories came in, people were terrified of their jobs being lost because of the machines. And today, most factories equip a lot of people with employees still working in factories. So the anxiety of anxiety of change is always there with new technologies. And thinking of the future is very important today. Is definitely our life is gonna be much easier. I mean, just today I prepared the presentation. It took me 3 minutes. It used to take me half an hour, and that's just 1 month into generative AI. What do you think the future of healthcare would be? What the care of education would be? My kid, I mean, I read a book for my kid every day before bed, and now he tells me, Dad, can you just go to the AI and tell him to read me a bedtime story that takes 3 minutes to do? And I was mind blown, because now he used to ask me for a book, and now he goes to ChatGPT and tell me, okay, so let's ask this AI to think what Sonic is going to be look like in like 10 years. What's interesting is that 80% of jobs in 2030 are not invented yet, and that's what's really remarkable, is that we don't know what's going to come in the future, but we definitely have to be ready for that. And the first thing it starts is with skilling. Without being skilled, without knowing what's coming, I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. So it always starts with skilling. It always starts with making sure that we know what's being anticipated in the future. Work is going to be totally different than today. I don't think we need to question everything around us. Do we need an office? Do you need more people in the office? Schools, what the future of schools look like? Can we go to school if we can have a tutor online that's available 24 hours, that understands me as a student more than anything else, because it owns the data, it has the data. There's a lot of ambiguity around it though, and I think it's very early for us to anticipate, but definitely the future looks really bright, and it's always nice to see the bright side of it, rather than being very, very skeptical around it and say it's really frightening. So yeah, the future of work is going to be interesting. It's bound to change, but there's a lot of things happening.
Absolutely. And speaking about the future, how does the fourth industrial revolution affect specific sectors and industries? Maybe we can start with you, Ronald.
Well, first, we can say it will affect all the industries, but I really want to focus on one key industry, which is also Microsoft mentioned it. It's all about healthcare. Now, when we're talking about healthcare, it's really scary. Can you imagine that now with AI, we can live forever? It's not a joke. It's not a dream. But actually, there are lots of doctors now, they are trying to prove that aging is just another disease. And this disease, we can fix it by medication, by AI, by new technology. How we can live forever through AI? Number one, we all know that, for example, in Arabic we say, "Darham wikaya khair min kintar alaj," which means it's always good to have prevention better than try to fix things after it's broken. So first, we all know about nanotechnologies that we can have inside our bodies that can predict our anomalies or our problems in our body. Now, Google, they mentioned about just scanning the eyes will tell us all prediction about our medical status and so on. So if we can identify aging as disease, and it will be multiple diseases, we can use artificial intelligence in order to treat those diseases, in order to create new medication, new treatment, and so on, and so on, and so on. So I think healthcare is one of the biggest industries that they are going to use AI in an enormous way. Adding to this, we can do, let's say, remote operations using AR, using VR, and so on. There are lots of industries where we can also use AI, especially, for example, in education, especially for transportation. Now we're talking about, let's say, self-driving cars, self-driving bus, self-driving airplanes, and so on. But again, we have to be careful about all the bad sides, and we'll talk later on about cybersecurity. I'll just mention one single thing that happened like 2 weeks ago, and I had a TV interview about it. One robot, let's say, he was confused between a human and a box, so he has to wrap a human and make it as a box, so this human unfortunately died. So again, it's great to have the great sides of AI and fourth revolution in all industries, but we have to be very careful about the disadvantages.
Okay, maybe we can also hear some insights from Vijay.
Sure. I want to touch upon the manufacturing industry and oil and gas. Two aspects of this. One is predictive and prescriptive maintenance, so the ability to detect if a piece of equipment or machinery, it could be a pump, a compressor, part of a pipeline, etc., is going to go down. It's going to stop working. Now, if you imagine an oil refinery, it's like a chain. It's only as strong as the weakest link. If one piece of equipment falls down, the whole production could fall down, and that's going to add cost, etc. So by putting sensors, a couple of things, right? So by putting sensors on different parts of machinery that send data every 10 minutes, every 1 hour, and again, the more data you have, the better the picture you have. The more historic that information is, if that information goes back 2 years, and this is where kind of the machine learning comes into place, we know that a particular piece of equipment will fail if maybe the vibration is to a certain level and the temperature goes up to a certain level. If it goes above those levels, the machine learning will know that in the past, when this has happened, this part will fail in 48 hours. And then once we know that, then we can schedule an engineer to come and bring the piece of equipment down at a time when it's not being used, rather than unscheduled downtime, which is very, very expensive. It can bring a whole refinery down in one instance. So I think that's the first thing, and I think predictive maintenance works in many, many, many different areas. The second point I want to make very quickly is just a little story about data quality. And I know my Microsoft colleague earlier mentioned about data quality. AI is only as good as the data that it can look at, right? The story I've got, again, it's an oil and gas story. It's about data quality. So it's a drilling platform. So it's a customer in the Middle East. They wanted to conduct maintenance on a part of a drill in an oil rig out in the sea. Okay, but obviously in order to do this, the oil rig has to come down. They have to stop the drill. They have to dismantle the drill. They checked to make sure that the part that was required was in the warehouse. They brought in an engineer, because of course these oil rigs are out in the sea, right? So they brought the whole facility down. Engineer arrives. They go to they remove the part that needs to be replaced. They go to the warehouse. It's the wrong part. The system said it was the correct part, but it's the wrong part. Now, that oil rig, in order to get that part, it had to be ordered from the US. There was a 2-week lead time. That oil rig was not producing was not drilling for 2 weeks. And the cost was millions of US dollars of downtime. So I think that's a great story around data quality and ensuring that if you don't have the correct information, a system, whether it's an AI system or a digital application, cannot make the right decision, right? Because the data is incorrect. Absolutely. Garbage in, garbage out. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very good. Khoy Nasser.
Okay, so I wanted to say healthcare, but Roland said healthcare about that. But because I manage the education, it's for sure the education industry. I think that's probably one of the most industries that's going to be disrupted. Every industry by far is going to be disrupted by AI, and maybe a step further when we talk about AGI, which I think it's around the corner, by the way. It's not that far away. And we've seen the news lately about Sam Altman. It's all revolving around how speedy they were towards AGI, and everyone was, let's take a step back. But in education specifically, I think we haven't revamped our education system for the past 60, 70 years, and I think we're out to a big change around that. We've been tested the same way for the past 50 years. We've been studying the same way for the 50 years. Our research methodologies haven't changed for the past 50, 60 years. The way we take the information and digest the information haven't changed the past 50, 60 years. So I think we are at a tipping point where we definitely need to disrupt that industry. And it starts from the kindergarten all the way to college. No one understands you more than an AI. Just because the more you talk to it, the more it understands you. And I think one faculty member cannot understand 50, 60 students at once. There's no way there's a faculty member that understands that much. I think maybe you have some educators in the room that we sometimes forget the name of students. The AI will never forget you. And it will definitely, and there's a say in AI that AI just makes one mistake once, and that's it. It never makes a mistake twice. The way AI provides you with information, guides you to information, understands the way you think, is the perfect scenario for education. And every student is different than the other. So the teaching methodologies should be different, catering to each student. The way it's done today is that it's just one style of teaching for a huge population of students, rather than a catered way of teaching. And I think this will open up a lot of appetite to homeschooling in remote areas where there is no schools. And people that we're seeing the situation in Gaza for now. We're helping the UN with schools and refugees there, and their schools got bombed. So what's after that? Can they study at home? Can AI give them those studies? It might be the case, and it's actually very close to reality. And we're working now actually with one of our organizations helping the crisis in Gaza, where helping refugees gain studies through an AI tutor. And this AI tutor is being trained as we speak through LLMs that study the data that is on Microsoft Cloud, and helping them retain this data and learn and have a profile for each refugee. So I think the education industry is a big one to disrupt, and I think it's happening faster than we anticipate.
Now, so let's speak about the other spectrum of education. What digital skills do you think are required for emerging technologies in the fourth industrial revolution?
I think we need to redefine the word illiterate. Now, the being illiterate is just writing and reading, and I think that nowadays, I think if you don't have minimal skills in any kind of computer is called illiterate. And the skills needed for the future, the obvious one would be prompt engineering, but prompt engineering would probably be very soon. But I think any kind of skilling towards computers is very important. Having them really early on helps. So again, example of my 5-year-old kid. He's been chatting with ChatGPT. He's probably going to use it at school, so it might as well teach him now. So the way people interact with the computer is very important at a really young age. But at the same time, you don't want to kill the human interaction. So I think building a balance of skilling towards human interaction while having skills in prompt engineering early on, and prompt engineering can start early on. The way you talk to an AI model, even if you're a 5-year-old or a 60-year-old, is probably the same. But it gets more complicated in the way you tell it. What we've done in Kuwait, for example, even before the generative AI came in during the pandemic, is to ensure 700,000 students in Kuwait get equipped with using, for example, Teams and Office 365 when the pandemic came in and learning stopped and they had to learn from school from home. We had to train 700,000 students. We had to train 60,000 faculty members to use those tools. And I think what we did during the pandemic was really important to what we're doing now. And it's just the beginning. Having minimal skills around AI is one. Pushing them to use more technology early on in schools is very important for the future, I guess. Yeah.
Vijay, what about the more technical skills?
I think let's touch upon cybersecurity. I think that's key, because if you think about traditionally, you used to put, before IoT devices came around, you put a firewall around your IT systems, protected, right? But now all of a sudden, you've got IoT sensors on all pieces of equipment. You've kind of increased the attack surface area. There are more points where a hacker can get into your system, because each IoT device provides a route back into your enterprise application systems. So I think cybersecurity is absolutely key from a technical perspective. I think coding is a very useful skill from a technical perspective. And of course, data, right? The whole data science side of things. A lot of our customers right now, data scientists are very hard to find, because most of them are still at school, right? They haven't come into the workforce yet. So I think data science is really important. And if we're talking about the future of work, I think we shouldn't just talk about the children that are still in school at the moment. We should talk about us as well, right? Professionals that are already in the workplace, upskilling, giving existing workers or the aging workforce skills around AI, digitization, cybersecurity. I think this is also important, as well as the youngsters that are still at school.
Very good. You mentioned cybersecurity, and that's our very next question. How is cybersecurity becoming so hard with a massive use of AI? And how can it be protected in light of the rapid technological changes? Maybe, Ronald, you can...
Well, first, let's agree on something. There is nothing called 100% secure. If you use the latest technology, if you have the biggest investment, if you have everything, you will never reach 100% security. That's for sure. But at the same day, I have a slogan that I really like to use. Don't let perfection be the enemy of better than before. It means, of course, I cannot be perfect, but at the same time, I can make myself, my company, my organization, my government, etc., better than before. And here I want just to tackle a case, because I used to work in Ministry of Information in Kuwait and was consultant for Sheikh Ahmad الصباح. I really know how things in government work, so I need to tackle what happened with Ministry of Finance and what happened afterwards. So, and we already saw that a report from Diwan Muhasib is saying that 46 governmental entities in Kuwait, they don't have the minimum required in terms of cybersecurity. So the issue is that once the hacking happened, we saw that report saying that we are going to look for international organization, worldwide companies, and so on, to come and help us. We have Microsoft, we have the top companies in the world, but organizations and technology by itself will never help you have the necessary security, because when we are talking about cybersecurity, 95% of attacks, it targets what? Us as a human being. It targets the weakest point in any infrastructure, which is human mistake. And let's go back to 2020, where there was cyber attack against a minister of وزارة الخزانة الأمريكية in USA. They did what we call supply chain attack. The biggest companies in the world, like SolarWinds, FireEye, CrowdStrike, they all got hacked. So that's why now using AI is being used more by hackers, much more than preventions. So hackers now, can generate text, can generate, we were talking now during the break about the old Nigerian prince who's sending you a message in order to give you reward and so on. Now AI is much advanced. I can make a deep fake video for any of you giving a statement now in Washington why we are sitting here. I can do imitation for your voice and sending messages to your boss or to whatever, giving orders instead of you. So this is what is making now cybersecurity more difficult. And moreover, in any governmental entities, any companies, cybersecurity is a cost because they need to invest in order to protect. Why? For hackers, it's business, it's money. They are making money out of hacking. So that's why we are always late, and we should always do on daily basis improvement. Cybersecurity is not one-time project. Okay, I need to make cybersecurity for this ministry. I will bring a company, make cybersecurity for me, now I'm secure. If now I'm secure, after 1 hour I'm not secure anymore. So that's why it's a continuous process that will never stop. AI is making harder and harder and harder for any cybersecurity people in order to protect. And I just need to confirm and emphasize on one last thing. The biggest investment in cybersecurity is not on technology. It should be on people.
I mean, obviously AI is reshaping the future as we know it. How can we be prepared for it, Nasser?
First thing is that, I mentioned skilling, and I mentioned that we should be prepared in the job market itself. As I said, I shared the statistic earlier that 80% of the jobs in 2030 won't be there anymore, are not even invented yet. So there is a lot of ambiguity around what's the job market going to be in the next 5, 6, 10 years. For us to be prepared, we need to understand. On a country level, let's say, if I'm talking about Kuwait, for example, we should understand if it's going to be an oil industry market, is it going to be, our economy is going to be revolving around that, or it's going to be more open? If it's AI is going to change literally every industry, is it going to be obsolete or not? Is oil going to be obsolete with AI or not? New markets going to be opened or not for individually? So I think being prepared for that is is in understanding how it works and understanding how the workforce is going to be in the next 10 years and knowing what jobs is going to be there or not. And it starts really early on. It starts with schools, it starts with universities, it starts with decision makers in the country. Having a plan, having an AI plan, where I think neighboring countries already, I mean, they have an AI minister. It's not per se an AI minister, it's just saying that we do understand what that per se is, and putting a plan reward around that is very important. So it's very hard to guess, but it's better to be prepared on what's coming. It's extremely hard to predict.
And in what manner would AI transform education? And do you think it's time to reconsider the way that we look at education and the way that we approach it?
Definitely. Again, as I said, we've been doing the same thing in education for the past 60, 70 years. Nothing has been changed. The way we understand the information has been the same. Universities haven't changed the way people test or exam. Standardized testing is, I believe, is outdated. So all this ambiguity around people digesting the information has to be changed. Students has been, we're going to be, probably our kids are going to be living behind a smart screen and knowing all the information beforehand, before going to school. Our students might know more information about their teachers than the teachers know by themselves. I understand in one of the schools there, students was challenging the professor, the teacher around a math equation that he learned through ChatGPT, just because reading about it and being around. So I think changing the way we teach is very important. Revisiting the way we study, we get tested. We're open to information. I mean, the amount of data we're exposed to is unprecedented, and because of that, we need to reevaluate the way we learn at some point.
Absolutely. I'd like to also see maybe, Vijay, if you can also contribute to this one.
Sorry, what was the question?
Is it time to reconsider the approach to learning?
Yeah, I think having the kind of collaboration between academia, industry, and government, I think could be really useful for all three parties, right? For the students to get experience in the real world. Talking from personal experience, our company, we've got a graduate program, and whenever we bring graduates in, it's amazing because their way of thinking is totally different to ours. We all can bring ideas to a table. Like if we all sat around a table and brainstormed, we'd bring ideas from our own experience. But when you've got students sat on the table as well, they come from a different angle, and they bring totally different types of ideas to the table that can also help. So I think that collaboration is important. I think kind of nationally sponsored hackathons, this type of thing, where we promote youngsters to get together in teams and create solutions to everyday situations or problems, is another good idea. So I think there's many ways that we can upskill, not just from the kind of traditional ways of learning.
Okay, we're very short on time, so I'm going to try to cut this short. What are the advantages and challenges associated with developing smart cities within the framework of the fourth industrial revolution? Ronald.
Okay. First, when we are talking about smart cities, as I discussed earlier, that smart cities, everyone in the city is involved in it. It means as individual, as governmental entities, as private sector, public sector, all human beings. So number one, we need to create awareness for all stakeholders related to those smart cities. Because when we're talking about smart cities, we're talking about cameras everywhere, we're talking about sensors everywhere. We need to give consent to people that actually, guys, you are monitored everywhere. By the way, today, UAE announced the first gateless in the airport. You know what this means? It means that you can go to the airport, get on your plane without talking to anyone. It's all based on what? On face recognitions. So we need to create awareness for people that, guys, all your biometrics information are being collected on daily basis. All information, all tracking about everything, where you go, where you head, and so on and so on and so on. So I guess one of the biggest challenge is the privacy issue. Because I guess nowadays we all know sometimes we want to leave our house, our mobile at home, so not for us not to be tracked. But guys, let's say tomorrow is Friday, we all go to avenues. In avenues, there are more cameras than there are people in avenues. Everywhere from the first you go to the parking to every shop and so on, there are cameras. You are being tracked everywhere. And unfortunately, there is nothing we can do about it. But at least we need to create awareness about it. So for me, the most important concern is data privacy and data security when we're talking about cities, because we're talking about sensors everywhere, we're talking about data collection everywhere, and so on. And I just need to mention one very important thing about when we're talking about data and AI, especially when we're talking about IoT and so on. We are being, and listen to this word, manipulated by the data output from ChatGPT or Bard or whatever AI system. Because if you ask the same question to ChatGPT and Bard and many other, now we have Grok for Elon Musk, you will get 3 different answers. Why? All the answers are based on what? Based on the data entries that we have in the system. So we have to be careful about any answers that we get from the AI, because at the end of the day, AI is what? Is the system and the data that is being injected in whatever operating system or whatever system.
Let's hear from Vijay. I see you nodding your head in agreement.
Can you hear me? Yeah, we go. I want to give a personal example of smart city. Being a CTO, I like fiddling around with technology. So I've bought a load of sensors for my house, things like, smart thermostats. I've got my garage. It's one of those remote control garages, right? Where you press the button and the door opens. You can buy a little device. It costs $20 off Amazon that internet enables your garage, right? So I can just use my app to open up the garage, and then you can extend it further. I've got this tool called IFTTT, and it costs something like $2 a month. And how it works is, it knows where my phone is. Whenever I come within 100 meters of my house, it detects that and automatically opens up the garage, right? Pretty cool. I've also got smart locks everywhere in the house. So I go out now with no key and no wallet. My wallet is my iPhone. I don't have any keys. I use an app, right? So this is all good, and this technology is very easily available. But here comes the problem. So one evening, I got back about 11 p.m. I was out for a meal, came back. The internet was down. I could not get into my house. The internet was down. And here lies one of the biggest issues about everything we've been talking tonight. If there's no internet, none of this stuff will work. I sat in my garden, so I live in Dubai. Luckily, it was around this time of the year last year, so it wasn't too warm. I was sat on my garden furniture. I didn't want to ring the bell because my wife would get very upset that I'd woken her up. Don't want to do that. So I called, I can name them here, we're in Kuwait, Do Telecom, right, which is the telecom company. I said, look, I was quite upset. I'm like, I pay for a service and I'm not getting the service. And because of this, I can't get into my house. Please, can you bring my internet back? It took them 1 hour. To cut a long story short, it took them 1 hour. So I had to wait in the garden for 1 hour. But that's one of the challenges of smart cities, right? If there's no connectivity, none of these IoT devices will work.
So basically, unless we fix our cables that are in the water, we will continue having this problem that you had. Okay, what about you, Nasser?
The smart cities have been a term being used for the past probably, I want to say 10 years now. The thing with smart cities is that we have to trust so many third parties with that, and we have to assume that all of them have data privacies that are up there. That's why we saw the JTBR law, for example, in the EU, where they had to put a mandate on those companies to share specific data, and with a lot of skepticism around a lot of third-party companies trusting them regardlessly of those data, it becomes a headache to a lot of people, and people starting, like Roland said, have some burnout around that. But the conceptually, it's really nice. Trusting third parties is the thing that might again, have an issue with a lot of people, but it comes very late. I guess the smart cities would probably come in a stage where the infrastructure is ready for that, and ensuring that the regulation is there, put in place, the laws abide with that. I mean, making sure that people don't abuse this data, having a proper cybersecurity infrastructure ready to save that. I mean, who would want to expose his house or his children being monitored 24/7 by someone that's accessing their data outside? So it brings up a lot of risks that maybe some people are not ready for that. And having a proper plan before that is really important. It's easy to build a smart city, but it's harder to maintain it.
Okay. How can innovation and entrepreneurship be promoted in the knowledge economy in light of the emerging technologies? Maybe we can ask Vijay.
I mentioned one, so the link up between academia, industry, government, I think that's one. Allowing access to this type of capability. In my previous company, we sold a national IoT platform to Saudi government through the National Computer Center, and they opened up that IoT technology to everybody, right? So startups, students. So if you wanted to play with a vibration sensor or a light sensor, you had a platform. You were able to play and experiment on a platform. So I think that's the second thing, opening up technology. Grants, you know, financing these startups, having hackathons as well. I think I've already mentioned the whole hackathon thing. Yeah, so there's many ways that innovation can be stimulated.
I mean, Ronald and Nasser, if you guys want to also add to this.
I just want to add something about when we are talking about innovation. I just need to mention something very important. Any innovation is a tool. So how to use this tool is what matters much more than the tool itself. So I will give you now one example that our colleague Paul, we always have this debate about the blockchain and cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and so on. So let's say all the concept of cryptocurrencies is built on the blockchain. Blockchain technology is an amazing technology and this can be used everywhere. But when we're talking about, let's say, cryptocurrencies over blockchain, at the end of the day, we are trading cryptocurrencies where on platforms like Binance, like FTX, and so many other platforms. So when we're talking about those platforms, what happened? FTX happened to be a scam, and now Sam is in jail, and I guess CZ is now following him after paying settlement for the US government for $4 billion. So we need to really understand the technology. We need to understand who is behind the technology, and this is the most important part. For example, when I talk about innovations, we're talking about, let's say, solutions. Who is behind the solution? Was it the US government, Iraqi government, Iranian government, Russia, China, or whatever? This is what matters much more than the technology. So we need to be aware about the innovation itself, how to use it, and who is behind it.
Very good. Thank you so much. This is our last question from this panel discussion, but if anybody has a single question, just one question maybe we can take, and if you can direct it to one of our experts. Inshallah ما في حد. خلاص. Okay. مشكورين يعطيكم العافية لحضوركم. Thank you so much to our panelists.